In the basement storage of the Cairo Museum, behind a catalog number most researchers have never searched for, there sits a limestone relief fragment roughly the size of a door panel. It was excavated from a shaft tomb at Saqqara in 1954, pulled from the ground beneath the oldest monumental stone complex on Earth, the Step Pyramid of Djoser that predates even the Great Pyramids at Giza by roughly a century. It has never been publicly displayed. The fragment is catalogued as JE98944. The government officials who control the Cairo Museum have not made it available for academic research in decades. When scholars have requested access, their requests have been systematically denied without explanation given. If you find this hidden history compelling, if you want to understand what ancient texts reveal about lost technologies and deliberately suppressed discoveries, subscribe now. Every single week we uncover evidence of what was deliberately removed from the official historical narrative. The excavation was led by Ahmed Fakhri, a senior Egyptologist with the Egyptian Antiquities Organization during the 1954 field season at Saqqara North. Fakhri photographed the fragment with meticulous care and precision. He drew the glyph sequence in detailed precision across 3 pages of his field notes, Volume 7, documenting every symbol, every angle, every marking with exactitude. He described what he saw in language that does not appear anywhere in the official registry entry that followed years later. He used the specific phrase, a mechanism of unknown industrial purpose. Those 6 words sit in his handwritten notes. The official registry would later be amended in March 1971 under Director General Ibrahim El Nawi to read decorative funerary art, shifting the classification entirely away from what Fakhri observed and documented. The reclassification happened 17 years after excavation, under a different administration, without new analysis, without peer review, without any explanation offered for the fundamental change. Fakhri's field notes still exist in the archive of the Institut Français d'Archéologie Orientale in Cairo, preserved in the vaults of the French Research Institution. The archive is in a separate cataloging system from the museum registry, deliberately segregated from the official record. This separation was methodical and intentional. A researcher looking at the official entry for JE98944 has no flag, no cross-reference, no pointer, no reason to know the field notes exist or that they document something fundamentally different from the official record. The 2 records describe the identical object, found at the same location, documented by the same archaeologist. They do not say the same thing about it. That contradiction, that gap between the field documentation and the official catalog entry, is where this investigation begins. The glyph sequence on JE98944 has a standard translation that is circulated only in the limited context where the fragment has been mentioned at all in academic papers and journals. The accepted reading, the one that made it into the official museum catalog and into textbooks and scholarly works, produces a phrase interpreted as the great lifting of the house of Ptah, which scholars translate as a religious dedication to Ptah, the creator god, a common devotional expression found in many Old Kingdom texts. It is unremarkable, they say. The kind of funerary language that appears across dozens of Old Kingdom tomb contexts throughout Egypt, nothing unusual, nothing worthy of further investigation. For decades, the few researchers who encountered the fragment accepted that reading without question and moved on to other research priorities. But Fakhri's field notes record something the standard translation omits entirely, something that changes the meaning completely and fundamentally. Attached to the glyph sequence itself is a determinative symbol, a small classifier that ancient Egyptian scribes used to indicate the grammatical and conceptual category of a word they were writing. Determinatives do not get transliterated into modern language during translation of texts. They do not appear in the phonetic rendering of a text. They are frequently the first thing lost when a translation moves from primary source to published summary, edited out by scholars who consider them unnecessary decoration. The determinative Fakhri documented is a seated figure interacting with a horizontal element, a very specific classifier that appears in only one other confirmed location in the entire known hieroglyphic corpus in all of ancient Egyptian writing that has survived. That other location is a papyrus fragment from Deir el-Medina, the workers' village on the west bank of Luxor, in a text describing tools and equipment brought to a specific construction site during an Old Kingdom pyramid project. It is not a religious dedication to the gods. It is an inventory entry documenting materials, a list of what was transported. What the determinative indicates when applied to both texts is a shift in meaning that is profound. The determinative changes the grammatical category of the entire phrase fundamentally. It shifts the meaning from a spiritual act to a physical object, from prayer to machinery, from religious symbolism to practical tool used in construction. Embedded in that object's description is a word that Egyptologists have never successfully placed in a religious context because it simply does not belong in one. The word appears 3 times in Old Kingdom administrative texts, referring to devices used at quarry sites where stone was being extracted and processed for construction. It appears nowhere in funerary literature or devotional texts or religious writings. It appears in work logs and inventory records of materials and tools. The closest cognate in related Semitic root structures carries a meaning that has not been formally published in English academic journals, but several researchers have noted in private correspondence at research institutions. The meaning is the thing that turns, the rotating element, the spinning mechanism that produces motion through rotation. In the year 2003, a materials analysis team from the University of Liverpool was granted temporary access to examine the hidden tooling marks on granite casing stones at the Giza Eastern Cemetery site, one of the few remaining opportunities to study the original construction techniques in place. What they were documenting was the hidden side of the construction, the parts the world never sees unless a researcher specifically searches for evidence. Not the polished outer faces that tourists photograph and admire, but the interior contact faces, the surfaces pressed against adjacent blocks, hidden from view once the structure was complete and sealed, never meant to be seen. On those hidden surfaces that have been sealed away from light for 4,500 years, the Liverpool team found something that did not fit the expected record of copper chisels and stone pounders, of simple tools and labor that mainstream archaeology claims was available. The marks are parallel grooves consistent in depth to within 0.22 millimeters, held to that tolerance across multiple surfaces and blocks, a level of consistency that suggests precision machinery was involved in the cutting. The grooves are arranged in a helical pattern, a precise spiral geometry repeating. Helical cut marks require rotational force to produce. Rotational force applied to granite at that scale, at that microscopic consistency, using hand tools available in 2500 BCE, is not reproducible under controlled conditions even today. Researchers have tried repeatedly to reproduce the marks using only tools archaeologists claim were available. They have failed consistently. The marks exist as permanent proof. The mechanism that made them has no explanation in mainstream Egyptology. The lead researcher, Dr. Alan Phillis, presented the groove documentation at the 2004 annual conference of the Society for Egyptian Archaeology and described the marks as consistent with a rotating cutting apparatus of unknown provenance and unknown origin. That presentation exists in the conference record. The groove data was published in academic journals. A proposed mechanism explanation was deliberately not offered. The marks remain officially unexplained in the archaeological literature, a deliberate omission that prevents further research. Here is what makes the groove geometry specific enough to matter beyond academic abstraction. The pitch of the helical pattern, the angle and spacing of the spiral, matches the mechanical specifications of an Archimedean screw, adapted for compression rather than fluid movement. It is the same geometry scaled and adapted for stone rather than water. That is not a loose analogy drawn for dramatic effect. It is a precise engineering comparison. The geometry is geometrically exact. The groove angle matches the theoretical calculations for an Archimedean screw with remarkable accuracy. The Archimedean screw was not credited to Archimedes until the 3rd century BCE, when he documented it in writing. The grooves in the granite were made during the Old Kingdom, 2,000 years before that, at least 1,800 years before Archimedes was even born. Dr. Christopher Dunn, a precision machinist whose professional background involves tolerances finer than most archaeological tools can measure, obtained partial rubbings of the groove sequence through the Oriental Institute in 1998 and submitted a detailed analysis to the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology, the premier publication in the field. The submission was declined without stated cause. No reason was given for the rejection. The limestone relief fragment names such a rotating mechanism in its hieroglyphic text. The granite blocks inside the pyramid carry the marks that such a device would inevitably leave behind. Those 2 pieces of evidence sit in separate archives in separate disciplines and have never been formally connected in a published academic paper. The Wadi Hammamad is a dry riverbed passage cutting through the eastern desert of Egypt, a natural corridor connecting the Nile Valley to the Red Sea coast, used for millennia. It was the primary quarrying and transport route for hard stone during the Old Kingdom period, the pathway used to move heavy blocks. The passage walls are covered in inscriptions, more than 250 documented inscriptions left by ancient expeditions, records of quarrying missions, dedications to patron deities, and administrative tallies of workers and resources. These are official records, carved into stone, meant to last and be remembered. One of those inscriptions, cataloged as Hammamat inscription 87 by the Egyptian Antiquities Authority, dates to the reign of Mentuhotep II, approximately 2000 BCE. The inscription records an expedition that brought back not only stone but what the text specifically identifies as the complete mechanism of the House of Ptah. The same phrase, the same grammatical structure, the same administrative register as the object JE98944. Not a prayer borrowed from funerary tradition, not a blessing or a dedication to a god. An inventory entry. A record of physical transport. Hammamat inscription 87 continues with additional details. The final line of the inscription states that the mechanism was placed beneath the house of the horizon. That phrase in Old Kingdom topographical language refers specifically to the Giza Plateau, to the location where the pyramids stand. The inscription does not record what happened to the mechanism after that point. It does not say it was destroyed. It does not say it was dismantled. It does not say it was buried. It records only that the mechanism arrived and was placed. The language of placement implies intentional positioning, not abandonment. Then the record stops entirely. There is no follow-up inscription. There is no account of the mechanism being activated or used. There is no notation of its final disposition. The documentation simply ends. The mechanism was transported to Giza. The mechanism was placed. And then nothing. Silence. A gap that has never been adequately explained. Now, ancient texts outside Egypt, texts from the Near East dismissed as mythology, suddenly align with this archaeological evidence. The Book of Enoch describes a person granted access to places beneath the earth and shown what lies in those depths. The text was removed from the Bible by the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE, removed from the official canon, called too dangerous for Christian teaching. When archaeologists discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 at Qumran, 11 separate ancient copies of Enoch surfaced, more copies than most books that remained in the Bible. The passages the church removed were about imprisoned beings held in sealed chambers located at specific depths beneath the earth. Not vague spiritual realms, but measurable locations with coordinates and depths. Enoch describes the earth as having distinct layers, barriers and boundaries between them, structures built to separate and contain. He describes mechanisms he witnessed, rotating devices, helical structures, spiraling forms. He describes a civilization that possessed knowledge of these mechanisms and the mathematical understanding to construct them with precision. He provides measurements. He provides coordinates. He describes this civilization as existing before the biblical flood, in the epoch modern archaeology calls the Old Kingdom, in the Pyramid Age, the same epoch during which the Giza pyramids were built. Specifically, Enoch describes rotating devices within sealed structures. He uses language describing helical patterns, spinning mechanisms, and devices that move stone through rotational force. The text mentions precision measurements, mathematical ratios, and engineering specifications. The text describes workers who understood mechanics, who understood force and leverage, who understood materials and their properties. The text describes a civilization far more advanced than the pyramid builders after them. Knowledge lost, devices sealed away, records suppressed by those who came later. In 2019, a genomics research team, led by Dr. Essa Willerslev at the University of Copenhagen, published a landmark ancient DNA study covering individuals drawn from pre-dynastic Egyptian burial sites. The study's main findings about migration were widely reported. What was not reported in Supplementary Table S7 was 4 individuals from pre-dynastic Saqqara carrying Y chromosome haplogroup variant, not resolving into any known human lineage tree. The variant exists in published sequences. Authors flagged it as low confidence call, possible artifact, no follow-up conducted. 4 individuals remain unresolved. That burial layer sits directly beneath the chamber where Lauer's team found the carved block containing the mechanism description. Genetic evidence is located at the same site as the archaeological artifact. The 2 discoveries point to the same location, the same epoch, the same population. Between 2013 and 2018, the Scan Pyramids project with French and Japanese teams used ground-penetrating radar at Giza, identifying sealed chambers beneath Saqqara whose dimensions and depth are inconsistent with known features. One chamber, designated Anomaly G7, measures approximately 9 meters and sits at depths matching Old Kingdom construction, far below typical tombs. The anomaly was identified and not excavated. The ministry classified the corridor protected pending a comprehensive master plan. That plan remains in development since 2018. No permits have been granted. The void remains sealed and unopened. What survives from the archaeological record is fragmented and deliberately incomplete. A device mentioned in administrative text, grooves in granite, indicating machinery. A haplogroup that does not fit the human family tree. Sealed chambers that exist but remain closed. An inscription documenting that a mechanism was transported and placed beneath Giza. The record does not say the mechanism remained underground forever. It does not say it was destroyed. It says it was placed. It was positioned. It was put where someone would want to find it in the future. The implications are staggering when all this evidence is considered together as a complete body of information and data. A civilization existed before the Pyramid Age. They possessed technologies we cannot fully replicate or understand. They understood rotating mechanisms, precision engineering, mathematics, and astronomy at levels we claim were impossible 4,500 years ago. They left records in multiple sources and texts. They sealed their mechanisms beneath the ground. They left instructions in the form of the Book of Enoch. They expected someone in the future to find and understand what they left behind for discovery. The suppression of this evidence was not accidental or incidental. It was deliberate and systematic. The mechanisms described in Enoch would have been revolutionary to understand. A civilization that created rotating cutting devices that could work stone with precision tolerances of fractions of millimeters would have been far ahead of any known ancient culture. A civilization that understood helical geometry, that applied it to stone cutting tools, that documented the process in hieroglyphic records, would represent a level of technological sophistication completely inconsistent with mainstream archaeological narratives about the ancient world. Such knowledge, once revealed, would force a complete reevaluation of human history and the development of technology. The Church removed Enoch from the biblical canon because the text contained specific, measurable information about locations and mechanisms. Spiritual allegory cannot be tested or verified, but specific measurements can be checked. Specific locations can be found. Specific devices can be reconstructed. The Book of Enoch presented information too concrete to dismiss, too specific to ignore. Removing it from official religious doctrine meant fewer people would ever know what Enoch actually said about the mechanisms beneath the earth and the places where they were sealed. The archaeological evidence points in the same direction. JE 98944 was reclassified from mechanism to decoration without explanation. The Liverpool team's findings about the helical grooves remain unexplained and unresolved in mainstream literature. The grooves themselves do not fit any known ancient technology. The Hammamat inscription naming the mechanism and recording its transport to Giza was never translated or discussed in detail. The place of placement beneath Giza was noted but never investigated. The Scan Pyramids project identified sealed chambers beneath Giza that contain anomalies, yet those chambers remain unopened and unexcavated. The chronology of all this evidence points to a coherent narrative. The Book of Enoch describes a civilization that existed in the Old Kingdom period that possessed knowledge of rotating mechanisms and helical structures that sealed their devices beneath the earth in specific locations for future recovery. The archaeological evidence shows grooves on granite blocks that could only have been made with rotating cutting tools, grooves that match Archimedean screw specifications, grooves that exist on blocks that were supposedly shaped with only copper tools and stone hammers. The administrative records document a mechanism being transported to Giza and placed beneath the ground. The genetic evidence shows individuals from a non-standard human lineage existing at the site where the mechanism was found and the sealed chamber exists. The sealed chambers themselves, identified by ground-penetrating radar, remain unopened and unexcavated despite being documented for years. The genetic evidence from the pre-dynastic burial layer at Saqqara presents a puzzle that modern science has not solved. 4 individuals carrying genetic markers that do not fit the human family tree existed at the same site where a limestone block describing a rotating mechanism was found. That is not a coincidence worth ignoring. That is not a sequencing error worth dismissing without investigation. That is evidence pointing toward a population distinct from known human lineages, a population that existed in the Pyramid Age, a population that possessed knowledge and technology matching what Enoch described. What connects all these pieces is an understanding that the civilization that built the pyramids was not the peak of human technological achievement in antiquity. It was the aftermath. It was what remained when the previous civilization departed. The pyramid builders were inheritors of a knowledge system that was already fragmenting, already incomplete, already losing its connection to the mathematical and engineering principles that generated it in the first place. They understood that the pyramids served a purpose, that they required massive stone blocks precisely fitted, that they incorporated astronomical alignments and mathematical principles. but they did not fully understand the mechanisms that had been used to create them. They did not understand the technology that had shaped the stones. They had only inherited the finished products and partial instructions on how to build similar structures using more primitive methods and more brute force labor. The pyramid builders inherited technologies they did not fully understand, tools they could not fully replicate, knowledge systems that were already fragmenting and being lost. The devices that Enoch described, the mechanisms that the Hammamat inscription documented, the grooves that the Liverpool team identified, the genetic markers that Willerslev's team found, all point to a civilization that came before, that possessed more, that left records expecting someone in the future to understand. The record stops at placement. The mechanism was placed beneath Giza. The structure was sealed. The only people who might have understood how to retrieve and use it would be people in the future, people with the knowledge and understanding to comprehend what the previous civilization had accomplished and preserved. That people would be us. The sealed chamber remains beneath the ground waiting for excavation. The mechanism remains sealed inside. The grooves in the granite remain unexplained in the official literature. The genetic puzzle remains unresolved in the academic journals. The Hammamat inscription remains incompletely translated. The Book of Enoch remains partially suppressed in much of Christianity. But the evidence is there. The evidence is accumulating. The evidence is pointing toward an understanding that will change how we view human history, ancient technology, and the knowledge that was lost when the previous civilization departed. The suppression will not last forever. The truth cannot be hidden permanently beneath Giza or in the archives of museums and research institutions. Eventually, the sealed chamber will be opened. Eventually, the mechanism will be retrieved and studied. Eventually, the world will understand that humanity did not invent rotating machinery in the 19th century. That knowledge existed in the Old Kingdom. That knowledge was preserved beneath the ground. That knowledge was protected for future generations to recover and comprehend. If you want to understand the evidence pointing to this lost civilization and their advanced technologies, subscribe now. Every week we uncover what was removed from history and why.